Begin the Quran Daf, Mesech Moed Katan Daf. Begin 2 lines down at the bottom of the Yomid, on 2 lines up on the bottom of the Yomid, on Tazayin and Beis, where we continue and we quote a same teaching that we mentioned in the previous Daf, which was on this theme about Nidui, about declaring someone in Kharim as a student who's doing it for his own honor. Should corresponds to the Kazik from Cheskel, anytime the Bechem B'Shem is joining of today's Daf. Some of this we're going to discuss in today's Daf are various halachas of nidui, continuing the theme of the previous Daf of excommunication, including Talmud Shenidul Chleidei, a Talmud to put someone into nidui to uphold his own honor. Any what's the halacha if, let's say, someone doesn't know who put him in nidui? Av Bezdin Shasarach, whether we place an Av Bezdin in nidui. Bereisha Meshamet Nafshe, the practice of first placing a ban on himself, whoever's making the shamta, and then doing it on the one that he's doing it on. Shamta, explaining what this term of nidui means, this word shamta. Various halachas about Chol Moed, including Hanazav HaMitzayra, regarding Nazav Mitzayra who just became pure. On Chol Moed, can he take a haircut? Ha'avol, whether a mon is permitted to cut his hair on Chol Moed. And this depends, in a certain case that we discussed, of mixes in Kukula. The beginning of the 7th day is considered like a whole day. And Yom Shvi Oil Lekan Lekan, if you could count although that's the day that we're considering the 7th day is over, it's like the part of the day was done, and then you're starting in the second half, the 30th day, and therefore you already started the Shleshim period before Yom Tov, hence cutting it off, and thus permitting a haircut. Little to benign, whether one can cut his nails on Chol Moed. Various halachas about a veilus, mourning, including Takpua Veilon, certain leniencies for someone who never had 2 consecutive mourning periods. But totally Galech B'Me'evlon, someone released from jail can cut his hair in the usual way. And Litum Petzavanai, we discuss whether the same thing applies for cutting his nails. Halacha Kedem Hamekel Ba'avol, that we always follow the lenient opinion in Hilchot Veilus. And Mishmaris, various halachas concerning the shifts of the Kahanim who perform the Avodah in Beis Mikdash as it relates to the halachas of cutting the hair. So we begin the current Daf Tazayin Mabez, 2 lines up on the bottom of the Yomid. So a teaching that we already quoted on the previous Daf. Amr Tanchem Bereid Rav Chia Ish Kvar Akoi. Amr Yaakov Ba'ach Amr Samloi. Vamala, some say Amr Tanchem Amr Huna. Vamala, some say it was Amr Huna Chudei. It was not Rav Tanchem named Rav Huna. It was just Rav Huna himself who said this teaching. As you continue to have a Zayin Menal. Talmud Shenidul Chleidei. If a student went and excommunicated someone else for his own honor, not because he was violating an Isser, which we already explained this on the previous Daf, Nidui Nidui. His excommunication has a valid halachic status of a Nidui. The Talmud learned the Brisa. This was the Brisa we quoted in the previous Daf. If someone is excommunicated by the teacher, so Menudul Talmud is going to be considered in Nidui for the student. But Menudul Talmud, if he's considered in Nidui for the student, Einem Menudul is not considered excommunicated for the teacher. Now, the diuk is, the inference is, L'Rav with the Einem Menudul. Yeah, for the teacher is not, because the teacher is not bound by his student. But Halakuliyam, it sounds like for everyone else, Menudul would be considered that he's in Nidui. Now, Lamai, what's the purpose of this Nidui? Even Mil D'Shmai, if because the person violated things related to Shemayim to have it, meaning he did an Isser, how could you say it's not a Nidui for the Rav? The pasuk says in Mishlei, Ein Chacham, there's no wisdom, there's no understanding, there's no counsel, Neged Hashem, and when it comes to Hashem, meaning if he violated an Isser, and that's why he's putting him in Nidui, he would be Menudul Rav too. Elav, rather obviously another person didn't do an Isser, rather there's L'chmod Atzma, the student's doing it for his own honor, and although it's not binding for the teacher, but it is binding for everyone else, and therefore we see that a Talmud that's Nidui L'chmodai, his Nidui is a Nidui. Similarly, the Gemara brings the Rabbi Yosef, continuing regarding a Talmud Chacham, that Suvim Rabbanan, Talmudic scholar, of a din l'nafshe, he go ahead and take the law in his own hands, where he could tell him, look, you owe me this and this amount. If it's b'milsa de psikale, if it's something that is very clear and definitive to him, and it's not a situation of doubt. Now, the Gemara continues regarding a Talmud Chacham, Ahud Suvim Rabbanan, he was a Talmudic scholar, that was Snoi Shemone, that there was some bad rumors about this person, and he had a bad reputation. So remember, the Yehuda says, Heichel Avet. He says, what should we do? L'shamte, if we should put him into Cherem, but Tzrich Rabbanan, the rabbis need this person. And he was the teacher. And Lo L'shamte, if you don't put him into Cherem, Kameschel Shema D'Shmaya, you're desecrating the name of heaven. So it's a very difficult situation. So Rabbi Yehuda said, did you hear anything regarding such a situation? It's very difficult. This is a person that's a big Talmud Chacham, but there's bad rumors going on about him, the things that he's doing. So Malay, Hocham Rabbi Yochanan says, what Rabbi Yochanan says? Ma'adev said was in the pasuk of Malachei, Kisif Zikon Yishmeru Das, because the lips of the priest will safeguard the understanding, but Torah Yivak Shemipiu, and Torah you should seek from his mouth. Ki Malach Hashem Tzavakas, because he's an angel of a God, the Lord of hosts. What's the pasuk saying? Im doima harav l'malach Hashem, if the teacher, if the leader is like a malach of Hashem, then you have Torah Mepiv. Then you should look and request Torah from his mouth. Don't try to hear his wise words because he has a bad reputation. This is the rabbis need him is nothing. Better don't learn anything from such a person. And therefore the Gemara tells us, Rabbi Yehuda says we put him in chayrim, this individual, although he's a great person, he's a leader, someone that everyone looks up to, we're going to put him in chayrim because of the bad rumors that are going on about him. Now, L'saif, Echlesh Rabbi Yehuda, at the end, Rabbi Yehuda became ill. And also Rabban L'shiyulabeit, the rabbis came to inquire about him, how he's doing. This person, this menuda, is also obviously a very well-known person, a big personality, and someone that people look up to. He also came with the Rabbanon to go and greet Rabbi Yehuda and see how he's doing. When Rabbi Yehuda saw him chayach, he started laughing. Amalei, so the menuda said to him, it's not enough that you put me in the chayrim. You're also going to laugh at me, you're going to mock me? What is this? Amalei said to him, obviously this person was a great person. He said, I'm not laughing at you. It's just that when I'm going to go to the next world, I'm very happy that even such a person like you, I didn't have to flatter. I didn't have to do chanifa. Which again, these are tests that come up all the time in our time where you have people, great leaders, that there's bad rumors about them, and you have people that are doing chanifa, and they're flattering. He says, I'm so happy that even such a person like you, I don't have to flatter, and I put you in chayim because of the rumors that are going on about you. Now, Yehuda passed away. So this menuda comes back to the Beis Medrash. Again, a very influential Talmid Chacham. He says to them, Shirili, let this rabbi already passed away. Be mad to me from this chayim that he put me in. You guys understand who I am, this and that. I could give the best shiur. I could, Rabbanan said to him, no, Gavad Chashav Rabbi Yehuda, a great person is like Rabbi Yehuda, like a Hacha Del Yisrael, is not here to permit you because he passed away. Elazil Gavad Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya, Del Yisrael, go to Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya that he could permit you. So I was like, he went in front of Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya. So Rabbi said, Rabbi, Pukayim Bedina, go check into his case. If you think it's appropriate to undo the chayrim, then permit his chayrim. So I'm Rabbi looking into this case, and some of the Mishalei thought, nothing. There's no definitive things about what the rumors are going on. Thought it's to permit the chayrim. So I'm Rabbi Shmuel ben Nachmani Arag Levahamas. So Shmuel ben Nachmani stood up on his feet and he said, "Umashach chashal beis Rebbe." If the maid servant of the house of the Rebbe, the rabbis were not lenient to undo her nida for a period of 3 years, and she's just a maid servant of the Rebbe's household. So Yehuda, our colleague, all the more so, he makes a chayrim and he passes away. You think he's just going to let it go? So Rabbi says, "Wow, Moed Katan Daf, what's this in front of another? How is this going to? How did this happen?" The Asa Idna that it came right now. Hi Saba, this elder, meaning Rabbi Shmuel ben Nachmani. The Hakama Shnei Le'asa is many years he hasn't been here. Shema Mina will confirm this. The reason why it happened, that he came right now to the Beis Medrash, and he says over this teaching, is that that it's not the mazel of this person Lemishali to permit him, so therefore Lisharli. They didn't permit his chayr. Nafik he went out. Kikabachi va'azal, when he was going on, he was crying. Asa zibuda v'tarkia amase. A bee came and bit him on his male organ, this menuda, which Taisa says, someone to say it's mida keneged mida, because he was nechshed biznus, he was engaged in immorality and terrible things, and because of that mida keneged mida, he got an injury over there, and he passed away. So again, this is people, they still treat him as a great person, this great Talmid Chacham. So they take him they want to bury him. All Hamoinam, all the Rabbanim, they're coming, they want to take him to the cave, to the cemetery of the Hasidim. But they didn't receive him because, as Rashi tells us, and Taisus, that there was a snake that surrounded the Ma'ara, which didn't open up his mouth, so they weren't able to bury him there. So then they brought him into the plots of the judges, the Rashi Bezdin, and they accepted him, which, as Rashi says, the Hasidim are better than the Dayanim, meaning the pious people, they're a greater level, and therefore he wasn't able to be buried over there. It says my timer. So it's actually two different versions of what the question of the Gemara is. Either my timer, why was he accepted at least into the kvuda of the Bezdins, of the judges, or actually the question is, why was he not accepted into that of the Hasidim? And that depends on the next word's girsa. Taisus' girsa is different than our girsa of either the Ovid Rebbe Eloi, which Rash says, since he did like Rebbe Eloi regarding these bad rumors, so therefore he wasn't so bad in what he did, even though he committed these immoral acts, but he did it in the best way possible. Therefore, he was accepted into the court's cemetery. Or actually, he violated Rebbe Eloi. He did not keep the way Rebbe Eloi said. Even if you're going to sin in these things, you should do it in a way that's not so bad. So therefore, that's why he was not accepted into the cemetery of the Hasidim. But be that as it may, time to learn the Brisa, Rebbe Eloi, he says the following thing. Famous teaching. If a person sees that his inclination is overpowering him, when the person's in that state where his urges are just so powerful, and he sees that he's losing this war, let him go to a place that they don't recognize him. The Yibash put on black, and cloak himself with black. And do as your heart's desire. Go ahead and do the sin over there, because at least over there they don't recognize you. And there should not be a desecration of God's name. Now, both Rashi and Taisus, Rashi brings it from Rav Heigel and Taisus brings it from Rabbi Chanal, say chas v'sholem, that this says to do as your heart's desire, is that once you're going to go put on black, and you're going to go into the place where they don't know you, it's not permitting you to do an Avera. It's just that you're not going to want to do this sin anymore. It's not going to be so geschmack anymore. It's a technique to try to stop you from, it's not so glamorous anymore. It's like degrading, and it's like you realize, what am I doing over here? This is not worth it. And it's like you see the people that are just the lowest of the dregs, and so therefore that's the idea about it. Now, what? Ani olive. Right, yeah. Oh yeah. Right. So the Gemara asked, so they were saying the reason that they didn't permit this Talmud Chacham's nidui was because if Yehuda made it and it's not a kleinigkeit, just a machaveg, because of Shivcha Shal Beis Rebbe, that she made a chayim on someone nidui, and they didn't take away for 3 years. What was that story? So the Gemara brings the Amsid Rebbe, the maidservant of the house of the Rebbe, Chazita Lahu Gabash. She saw a certain person that he was hitting his adult son. So she said to him, said, let this father be in chayim, because the kavah he's violating mishum b'lifnei evil is hidden michshol. In front of a blind person, you shouldn't place a stumbling block. That since your son is already a teenager, he's already an adult, that maybe he's going to reject his father, he's going to rebel, and he's causing him to stumble, because when you're going to hit your son, he's not going to hit back. Says you should be in chayim for treating your son like this. They sound like learn the brisa. Lifnei evil is hidden michshol. In front of the blind, don't place a stumbling block. But makula b'nei because the pasuk talk about when you hit an older son, again, people don't realize that you're turning your child away. That's lifnei iver. So therefore, that was the story where for 3 years they didn't permit that father's nidui because of the maidservant of the household of Rebbe. Continuing on different stories regarding putting in nidui, Rishlokish have a menata pradesi. He was watching an orchard, and osa hahu gavra. So a certain person came along, but he was eating some figs. So Ramad Beikoler, Shloker started screaming at him. Lashka, but the guy didn't pay attention. He said, Lahava Gava B'Shamta, you should be in Chayr. So the person said to Adab, to the contrary, Lava Gava B'Shamta. You, Shloker, you should be in Chayr. Why? If I owe you money, Nidu means in Chayav, do I owe you Nidu? Which says, what do you mean? Didn't we say on Daf Tezan, the previous Daf, that for money we put in Chayrim? We said Hanamil Lemoina. So he says, yeah, but you should have called him to court first. Maybe he would pay up. Also, even in courts itself, they don't make a chayim right away. You need Monday, Thursday, Monday, like we said before. Unlike Isser, which you do right away. And moreover, he brings from the Tam that actually in that place the custom was that people would eat from the trees, and then when they would pay money. So he didn't even violate Gezel, because that's how they used to do it. So what are you putting me in chayim for? Because I'm not paying attention to you. You should be in chayim. It's actually Asl Bey Midrash. Shlakish came to Beis Medrash, and Amar Levi actually said to him, Shaloi Nidu, his Nidu is valid because of how you treated him, and Shalchayin Nidu, your Nidu is not a Nidu because you did it inappropriately, because he's right. He owed you money, not Nidu. So it says, Maita Kante says, so what should I do? So they told him, Zilagabe, go to that person, Delishulach, that he should permit. Your Nidu, he put your Nidu, he has to permit it. But he said to them, Lidanle, he says, I don't know who he is. Amalei said to him, okay, Zilagabe Nishur, Delishulach, go to the Nasi, he'll permit that person's needed. Because the time of learning the Brisa and the duhu of any damn nidu. Let's say someone was put into nidu, but he doesn't know who it was. He could go to the nasi, who's the leader of all the Jewish people, and he has the master key. He can go ahead and permit that person's nidu.
Everybody who does something wrong, another person who observes what could put him on nidu.
Right, what is the status of? We
Anybody?
said Bezdin. We had previously said Bezdin, and here's what?
It's like a citizen's arrest.
A citizen's arrest.
But,
Right? There's a given actual halacha, or is it in? I mean, we did say like a tamuchachim shenid l'chvayda. Is this nid l'chvayda? Is this the person did something isser? Maybe it's an isser shlokish did. Who gets to decide? Do you need a court? It's a good question about what we do find different as an individual, or does even an individual that a tamuchachim could even be this person. So. Yeah, it seems like that he was able to, and he says you should treat yourself as a nida and get it permitted. He says, "B'usha eskinu." In Usha they instituted, going back to regarding if a Talmid Chacham does not such good things. So in Usha they instituted the Av Bezdin Shesarcha, the head of the court, if he sours, if he does inappropriate things, they don't put him in nidui. Ella, rather, in the following words, they tell him, quoting a pasuk in Malachim Beis, he covered. Either that means to say, make yourself heavy, like if you have a headache, like a heavy on your head, or it means like armor yourself, v'shev b'veisech, and stay in your house. Like in other words, it's like a very respectful way of saying just stay home and don't come out. Now if chazr sarach, if he goes subsequently and again he does his bad ways, then they put him in nidui, nechila Hashem, because they desecrate him God's name. Again, this person might be the biggest of the big. We don't care. We don't show favoritism, and we stand up with those who are victims or whatever it is, and we say that's it. You're putting you in chayrim because of the chila Hashem. Upligidur shlakish, which that actually disagrees with your shlakish. Ramer shlakish says tamuchachim shesarach. If a tamuchachim sours, even on this mavasi, you don't publicly, you don't take things out into the open and the blogs and whatever, and just put someone in publicly into nidu. Just like it says a pasuk in Yeshaya. You're going to stumble today, and your prophet's also going to stumble with you. Laila. At nighttime. What does it mean at nighttime? Which is kisahu, cover it over. Don't disgrace him in public, kalayla, like at nighttime, which is dark and people don't see. So Shlomo tells you never do it out in the open, because that's just not an appropriate way to treat a Talmid Chacham. Also, continue on this theme, Mazurcha Chasida, Mazurcha the pious one, when the Talmid Chacham was necessitating to be put into Chayrim, first he would put himself into Chayrim, because Rashi says because of the dignity of that Talmid Chacham, or as Taisa says because of pain, where he has to be another Talmid Chacham, it pains him, so he'd first put himself into nidui. Or it's simply as a reminder that he should remember to permit that guy's chayim, because sometimes people get busy, but if you have your own chayim, you can remember to undo his. And why did and then v'hadar mishamat l'didei, then he would put that person into chayim, and kiyav al b'shpizei, when he would come back, when he would finally make it home to where he's staying, Charlotte after he'd permit himself from his own chayim, but the Charlotte today they would permit that person's chayim, which says, why didn't do the other way around? Why doesn't he first be matir that Talmid Chacham chayim in his own? So he says similar, like we find in Shavuos Daf Yudalef and Aleph, Yovei Zaka v'Yichapar l'Chayev, that when the Kohen Gadol, when he brings his par, he first does the vidah for himself, and then for the fellow Kohen could let a Zaka come and do with the Zaka. Here also, let it be something that's already hutar, and then do it for the one that he's going to be matir for. Now, says the Gemara, this is based on that Omar B'Gila Madav. Says Talmid Chacham and Nadal Atzmai. Talmid Chacham could do neither for himself, which maybe that person who was taking the fruits was also Talmid Chacham, because we had asked that everyone could come and do a citizen and the rest. Maybe Talmid Chacham, because the Talmid Chacham, he says, could do neither for himself, but Meifel Atzmai, he could also nullify for himself. In other words, he could do it all on his own. Amar Papa, he says, tastefully, I should get reward that comes to me. I never put a Talmid Chacham into Chem. Says the Gemara, what? That's a mila? When the Talmid Chacham is required for Shamta, what does he do? You don't sweep things under the rug. So why is that a mila to say I never put a Talmid Chacham into Chem? Says the Gemara, no, because he did like what they do in the West Eretz Yisrael. They rely on giving lashes to Talmid Chacham, but they don't count for that of putting Chem. In other words, their punishment of choice is giving lashes and not to put in the Chem. He says, I should get rewarded. We didn't choose to do the version. Maybe it's easier one to put in Chem, put him in Chem. It's not necessarily. They would give him lashes. They would force him to do the right thing. Says my shamta. What's this word shamta? So Amarav, actually, it's either shem misa or sham misa. But be that as may, either it's the name of death or it's there is death, but that's what Shamta is like a death that the person experiences, meaning the one who's being put in the cherem. Shmuel Amma, he says, so the word is shemama yeh, that there will be desolation. Also, same idea. Shamta is a very extreme isolation of the individual, economically and socially, and all these different things, and therefore that's why it's called Shamta. And the Mahanya Bey, and it's so effective on the person, ki tichya b'tanura, like when you smear fats on an oven wall, which it gets absorbed into the oven, that it never comes out there forever. In other words, this is a punishment for whoever you put in Shamta, that he can never outlive that trauma. About being put in Cherem, this is something that will always, and therefore that's why it's a last resort. We don't want to just put some in the Cherem because it lives on forever. Which the Gemara says actually plead to Rish Lakish. It's actually disagrees with Rish Lakish. He asks, he says, no, Shamta, putting in Cherem is not forever. A person could heal from that Cherem. Because Rish Lakish, he says, just like the Shamta goes into the 248 limbs of the person, so when it comes out, it comes out of all the 248 limbs, as he explains. When it goes in, the person in Yeshua says, the city was a cherem. Now, cherem is gematria Masayim Rabba Mishmain Hava. The numerical value of cherem is ramach, the 248 limbs. So cherem goes into the 248 limbs. When it comes out, the chsiv in Chavakuk. We say this every day. Beroiges, with fury, rachim tiskish, remember compassion. Now rachim begematria hachava. Mercy is the same numerical value as 248, which is from the fury. There's going to be a recollection of rachim that it's going to come out from the 248 limbs. So therefore, the Rish Lakish disagrees and says a Shamta is not like the fats on the oven wall, it never comes out. A person could survive a cherem. Number of Yosef, he says, to show how effective is the Shamta, Shadei Shamta aganuf to the kalba. You could make a cherem on the tail of a dog, and the Shamta will do its own wonders, and it will actually afflict the tail of the dog. As the Gemara brings a story, we're saying that it's not just, it's also a supernatural thing, the Shamta. There's a certain dog that was eating all the shoes of the rabbis. Come to the shul door and they would leave their shoes. You come with your socks into the shul, and somehow all the shoes were missing. They were being eaten up. Now, they don't know who is doing this to the shoes. So Rishamti, they say whoever is eating up the rabbi's shoes will be in excommunication. And then the fire got a hold of the tail of the dog and it consumed it. So you see that a Shamta works in a supernatural way. As the Gemara brings another story to point this out. There's a certain strong man that would come at he was painting this Talmudic scholar, whenever he had opportunity to bother this Talmud Chacham, he was bothering him. So also Rabbi Yosef came from Rabbi Yosef. Somebody Rabbi Yosef said to him, Zil Shamte, put him a cherem. Allah said, Mr. Finman, he says, I'm afraid of him because he's a strong person, he's in the mafia, and who knows what he's going to do to me. Amalei says, okay, shkila p'sichala, go ahead and write a Shamta on him. Put a pashkavilim. This is I'm afraid of him. He sees this, that it's going out against him. He's gonna, who knows what he's gonna do to me. So Amalei said to him, okay, Shakle, take that note of excommunication, and Achte Bekada, put it into a jar as we continue to Bays, meaning, and then he won't hear about it because you're just putting it into a jar. And the Achte Bekivri, and actually then put it into a cemetery where no one goes over there, so for sure he's not going to find it. Ukri Bey, and blow into that jar, Alfa Shipuri Ba'arba Yomi, 1,000 shofar blasts in 40 days. And everyone's busy with 40 days. And Azal Abed Hachi, he went, he did this, and Pakakada, the jug burst, Umis Alama, and that strong man died. So again, you see that a Shamta is also a supernatural thing. Why is it called Shipure, the shofar blast? It's from the word Shnefronim, because that they use it to punish and collect from the person who was being put in Shamta. And my Tavra, in other words, why do they blow a Tekiah and a Shvarim, which is Tavra, is Shever, is a broken blast? So Mitzvah use this to show the Tavri Bati Rami, that it's going to break the haughty houses. In other words, Shamta breaks the arrogant people. The time I learned the Bryce, he says, wherever the sages place their eyes, is either death or poverty. And here also where a Shamta that the Rav is doing is either going to cause the person to die, like in this case, or it's going to cause him to become poor. Going back to Halacha, the Mishnah, we said that certain individuals, that's the title of this parak, Ve'elu Megalchen, they're allowed to take a haircut on Chol HaShemayim, although everyone's not allowed to. We said Va'nazeh V'Mitzayra, they which mitumasa l'tarasa, when they're coming out from the state of tumah to the state of tahara, they're allowed to go ahead and take a haircut on Chol HaShemayim. Now, Boyiminei, Rabbi Yirmiyah ben Abzir says, now this halacha that we said in the Mishnah, is this specifically b'shaloi hoylem pinai, when they didn't have an opportunity because they only came out of their tumah, it only finished their days of tumah to become tar on Chol HaShemayim. So they were allowed to take a haircut because they didn't have opportunity to cut their haircut before Yom Tov because they were still in their state of tumah. Maybe even if they had opportunity, but they just didn't take a haircut before Yom Tov, are they still allowed to go ahead and cut their hair on Chol HaShemayim? So Malay says, Tanini, we learned in the Brisa that says, all these individuals that we said, they're allowed to take a haircut on Chol HaShemayim because they came from overseas. He was let out of jail. Whatever the story was, is only Mishloim Bai. Only if they didn't have opportunity, they came back mamish, by shki, or on Yom Tov, they let them out and they walked home, whatever it is, they came back on Chol HaMoed. That's when they're allowed to take a haircut on Chol HaMoed. The opportunity 3 days before Yom Tov, the guy came out of jail, he's all busy, meeting with thanking lawyers, students, he does everything. Yeah, and he didn't take a haircut. So he said, not take a haircut on Chol HaShemayim. In contrast, Nazar u'Mitzayra, which are the two cases we're asking about, although they had opportunity 3 days before Yom Tov, they came out of their tumah to tahara. Even so, with term they're permitted to take a haircut on Chol HaShemayim. Why? Because it's not because of the Ein Shabbai. It's shalai yishur korban. They say we don't want them to delay their korbanos by not taking the haircut until after the Yom Tov, because a Nazar and the Mitzayra, they don't bring their karbanas until after they get a haircut, like the Pesukim say regarding them, which actually Taisa points out, although actually the haircut of the Nazar is not even ma'akiv, so why could you let him take a haircut so that he brings these karbanas? But says Taisa, yeah, but still, the norm is to take the haircut because there's a mitzvah when he cuts his hair to put the hair beneath the pot that the carbon shlama of the Nazar is cooking. So everyone basically will not bring his karbanas until he takes the haircut. So therefore, we don't penalize him if he didn't cut his hair before Yom Tov, because sometimes it's going to happen that he's not going to do it. And if you're going to say he's not doing a Chol HaShemayim, it comes that he's going to be delaying his karbanas, he's not going to bring it on the 8th day in its appropriate time. So therefore they said, you could take a haircut on Chol HaShemayim, better that we make the time of it when you bring your karbanas earlier and not later. And therefore, yes, even if you have an opportunity before Yom Tov, you're allowed to go ahead for Nazar and the Mitzayah that went from Tumah to Tara to get a haircut on Chol HaShemayim. Now, related discussion, Tanu in the Brisa, regarding the items mentioned in that Mishnah. We mentioned a bunch of individuals that could take a haircut on Chol HaShemayim, but certain ones we didn't. Now, Tanu in the Brisa that actually says two individuals that we didn't say, that the Brisa does say could take a haircut on Chol HaShemayim. Hakayin va'aval. We didn't say those individuals, but it says the Brisa they're matar begeluch, they're allowed to get a haircut on Chol HaShemayim. Says Gemara, Hi aval heichadam. What's the case of the mourner? If you think it's to say, meaning why would a aval? What do you mean the aval? What is it, when you say he's permitted to take a haircut on Chol HaShemayim? If you say shechal shmini shalei every regel that the day 8 of Shleishim was an Erev Yom Tov, so iboy lelikluch every regel, then he should have taken the haircut Erev Yom Tov, because the Mishnah teaches later in the Daf Yomi Aleph, someone buries his dead relative 8 days before the Yom Tov, then it's mevatel the gezer of the Shleishim, and he's allowed to take a haircut. Why? Since you already started 1 day of the Shleishim, and therefore, and then it's like, it's mafsik. Yom Tov cuts off wherever you're middle of. If you're middle of the Shiva, cuts up the Shiva, middle of the Shiva, cuts up the Shleishim. So you're done with the Shleishim. So Erev Yom Tov, you should have been taking the haircut, and this person did not take a haircut Erev Yom Tov, so why should we let him go ahead and get a haircut on Chol HaMoed? It's like any person who didn't take Erev Yom Tov. We don't let you take a haircut on Chol HaMoed because you were not an Einus. You were able to take a haircut Erev Yom Tov.
When is it? A minute Yom Tov starts or before that?
Right, so it's when we say that's part of the discussion of, but you're already in the 30 days, so therefore once Yom Tov is being mafsiked, so then you could have that mixed simcha kulo, that you already could go ahead and take a haircut on Erev Yom Tov. Now, okay, so it's not that the 8th day was on Erev Yom Tov. It's not really as mixed simcha, it's really because Erev Yom Tov already that's being mafsik, so we let you go and take a haircut already for that. But so what are you going to say? No, it's where the 8th day is on Shabbos Erev Yom Tov, which actually Taisa says, how's that possible that the 8th day should be on Shabbos? That would mean that the Kavura is on Shabbos. We don't do Kavura on Shabbos. How's it possible? Taisa says either means to say that you heard a Shmua on Shabbos, but not to do a burial on Shabbos, like you could hear about the death, and that's when it starts for you, the Avelis. Or in Yushalmi actually talks about that there was the body, but a wild animal dragged away the body, and they gave up hope of ever giving the body. Then you actually start counting from the time when you gave up hope. And that's when you start your shiva. But be that as it may, if let's say the 8th day falls out on Erev Yom Tov that's on Shabbos, so that's an illness, because he could not take a haircut on the 8th day on Erev Yom Tov because it's Shabbos. So therefore, he's allowed to take a haircut. Meaning, you're right. He is a person that is allowed to take a haircut, but it was an illness. So therefore, he can take a haircut on Chalash Hamayit. Problem is, it says it was not true. Even the case you just described, the Boyd L'Glucha Erev Shabbos. Then they should have taken the haircut on Erev Shabbos, 2 days before Yom Tov, which is on the 7th day of the Shiva. Why? Because Amrav Chazam Rabbeinu Bar Shili says halacha kabashal. Says first halacha like kabashal that even if there was only buried 7 days before Yom Tov, it still is mavatlik zera shleishim, because he holds mitzvim kukula 7th day is already like half of the 7th day is already like 7th day was over, and then the other half of the 7th day is already like day 8, and therefore it's like you're already in day 8, and you're already starting the shleishim period. Therefore it's mavatlik shleishim. But even the Moed Katan Daf, he says, Chum agreed to Abishol, even though they hold that no, you need to have 8 days before Yom Tov mavatlik shleishim, not 7. They agree b'shachal shmini shalei least b'Shabbos eregel. In this case, if day 8 falls out to be Erev Yom Tov on a Shabbos, which is a Einis, Shemutal L'Gilech Erev Shabbos. So you're allowed to take Erev Shabbos because of the situation, which is on day 7. So that also won't answer our question, how could the Brisa say that an Avil could take a haircut on Chol Moed? What's the case? What do you mean he's allowed to take a haircut? If you're telling me that he finished it on Shabbos, on Shmini, on Erev Regel, then you should have taken it before, so you're not an Einis. Says no, we needed Shachal Shvishal at least b'Shabbos Erev Regel. No, we're talking about where day 7 is on Shabbos Erev Yom Tov. Oh, so now we have an understanding of what's the machlekes between the Tana of this Brisa and the Tana of our Mishnah. Could such a person Avil take a haircut of Chol Moed or not? Because obviously, if you're Avil, you can't take a haircut because of Avelis. You get Chol Moed. So we're trying to figure out what does it mean in Avil. Like what do you mean Avil? When did the Avelis finish? So Tana Bra, the Tana of the Brisa that says that Avil could take a haircut of Chol Moed is Savla Kabashal. He holds like Abishal. The Amen that he says mixim kukulay. And we say part of the day is like the whole day. Oh, so the Yom Shvi or Lukan. So day 7 is like it's part of the Shiva and it's part of the Shleishim. Now, since the Shleishim already started, he should have taken the haircut every Yom Tov. But we keep in the Shabbos, since it's day 7 that's on Shabbos, so Anasu is beyond his control. But essentially, he was able to already. So he's already done with the Shleishim. Then we could take a haircut on Chol Shamayit. Whereas Tana did on the Tana of our Mishnah that said Elu Megalchim Meregel, which is titled in this parak of our previous Mishnah, and it didn't mention the mourner because some of the Kabbalah, the Tana Mishnah had like Rabbanan. I mean, they say Loimin Mitzvah. We don't say part of the day is like the whole day. You need 7 whole days to then be into the Shleishim period. Oh, so Makat Lishlam Avelis to Shiva. So you're not yet done with the Avelis of the Shiva before the Yom Tov, and hence you're not considered as an Einis, because even if it was not Shabbos, you would not be able to take a haircut. So that's why you cannot take a haircut of Chol Shamayit, because you didn't stop the Shleishim. You weren't mafsik the Shleishim. You didn't start the Shleishim period. You went straight into Yom Tov from the Shiva. You never started the Shleishim. So therefore, Shleishim is only going to be after. You're going to do it after Yom Tov is over. You didn't start it to be mafsik it. Oh, so then you can't take a haircut because you're still in the Shleishim when you not take a haircut. So that's the machlekes between the Tana of the Mishnah and Tana of the Brisa. It's talking about specifically if day 7 is on Shabbos Erev Yom Tov, where according to Abishal, you technically could take a haircut because the Shleishim is already starting on day 7, but it's Einis because it's Shabbos. Oh, so you're Einis, but you're ready with Mafsik the Shleishim, then you can take a haircut in Chol Shamayit. Tana of Mishnah, no. You never started the Shleishim period, so what check is? Of course you cannot take a haircut in Chol Shamayit. You're still doing your Avelis of the Shleishim. Yom Tov was not Mafsik it, you never started it. So therefore, that's the case of the Oval that our Mishnah did not say to be able to take the haircut. That was the case of the Oval. That's just about high kohen. What's the other case that the Tana of our Brisa says that you could? Tana of our Mishnah did not mention a kohen taking a haircut on Chol Shamayit. If it's talking about where Shabbos, which the Mishmar always ends on Shabbos, the Khan would switch their centuries, they would switch it on Shabbos. So if their Mishmar ended on Erev Yom Tov was a Shabbos, so you say, oh, wait a second, that's a perfect case of Einis. That, no, I couldn't take a haircut then it was Shabbos, and that's Erev Yom Tov. What do you mean? What do you mean? Even though during the Mishmar, the Khan could not take a haircut, but he should have taken it on Erev Shabbos, which is Erev the Yom Tov, because the Gemara told us in Daf Yomi that Anshe Mishmar, although they're not allowed to take a haircut, but on Thursday they're allowed to because of Kavod Shabbos. So Friday is for sure included in that you should have taken a haircut on Erev Shabbos, 2 days before Yom Tov. So why is that an excuse to say that your kohen could take a haircut during Chol Shamayit? So we needed the Shalom Mishmar to B'Yagel. Talk about where his Mishmar actually finished on Yom Tov. In other words, for example, let's say the Thursday of his Mishmar was the first day of Yom Tov, where he cannot take a haircut, because during the Mishmar he's not taking a haircut. He's only allowed to take a haircut from Thursday and on. That's already Yom Tov. And his Mishmar finished on Shabbos, which is already the third day of Yom Tov. That's the case when that the Tana of the Bryce is saying that, okay, so he was 90s, so he could take care of Kol HaShemayim. But Tana did that, the Tana of our Mishnah that said that no, you cannot take a haircut as a Kohen of Kol HaShemayim. Why not? Somebody holds, the Kivin did not, since we learned the Mishnah Masechta Sukkah that says, B'shleisha Prakim Mishon, in 3 times during the year, meaning on the Shalosh Regalim, on the 3 Yom Tovim, how you call Mishmar Shabbos, all the Mishmars were equal. Meaning everyone, all the Kohanim from that were in Klal Yisrael, they were all equal by Moed Katan Daf regarding the sacrificial parts of the Yom Tov, that they all had equal rights. About the equal division of the Lechem Apanim from the Shulchan. So command the Shalom Mishmar to B'Regel. It's like as if he didn't finish his Mishmar yet, because he still has the portion in the Emudim of the Yom Tov, and therefore he really didn't finish his Mishmar all Yom Tov, and therefore, of course, he cannot take a haircut during Chol HaShemayim, because, as Rashi explains, he's Anshe Mishmar, which Anshe Mishmar are Sun L'Galech. You can't take a haircut simply because you're the people of the Mishmar, because your Mishmar is continuing now. It's like everyone's a Mishmar. It says the Gemara on the Tanya brother, Tanya the Bryce that says no, a Kohen in that situation would be permitted to take a haircut on Chol HaShemayim because of the Oines. He holds no. Avagav the Shaykh B'Hanach Mishmar, although he does have some relevancy in these Mishmars, but Mishmar Tei, his primary Mishmar, that Mir Shlimale, that he did finish, because there are certain differences between which actual Kam it is their Mishmar and everyone else, and therefore he's permitted to take a haircut. That's the machlokes we have between the Tana of Bryce and the Tana of our Mishnah regarding these 2 cases of Aval and of the Kayin, if we consider it as a situation that he's allowed to take a haircut on Chol HaShemayim or not. The Tana of the Bryce, segueing, all those that we said in our mission that they're permitted to take a haircut on Chol HaShemayim, and they're also permitted to take a haircut during the days of mourning. So meaning, if let's say someone came from overseas or from jail and he's an aval, he's allowed to, although aval's not allowed to take a haircut, but these individuals, just like we say we permitted during Chol HaShemayim, they're allowed also during the days of Avelis. Says in the Bryce that says Punkt Fakir, says assume that they're not allowed to take a haircut during the days of Avelis, these same individuals. So Rav Shila says it's not a difficulty. In the first Bryce that says that you're allowed to take a haircut these individuals during the days of the mourning is Toma when he has consecutive mornings. Consecutive mornings, and you're someone who came from overseas or let out of jail, in that consecutive morning, you're allowed to go out and take a haircut. Says the Gemara, even if you're saying the case Toma where they had consecutive morning, his father passed away, the mom is right by the end of the Shiva, his mother passed away. So Ma'iri, why are you saying all these individuals that we mentioned in the Mishnah, they're allowed to go ahead and cut their hair, even if you didn't come out of jail, no matter who you are, just the fact that you finish the shleishim, you get another shleishim right after, that itself would allow you to go ahead and cut your hair. The time I learned the Brisa, if you have consecutive mornings, so if his hair is too heavy, he couldn't cut his hair, now he's going straight into another avelis, so Mekel Batar, he could lighten his hair by taking a razor. He hasn't washed his clothing. Can't do tachbaises. Yeah, okay, he's allowed to wash his clothing in water. So what are you saying specifically these individuals? Anyone who has tachva available is allowed to. Says, yeah, but Allah, we learned regarding that brisa that when he has consecutive mornings that he's allowed to lighten his hair with a razor. He says specifically betar, it's only with a razor, meaning it has to be in an abnormal way, but he cannot do it with scissors. But when we said he can wash his clothing specifically with water, he cannot use detergent. That's what the Bryce is saying, that all those who are allowed to cut their hair on Chol HaShemayim, they're allowed to go and cut their haircut, get a haircut during the days of mourning when it's a consecutive morning, and you could do a regular haircut with scissors, and you don't have to use a razor. That's what the Bryce is coming to tell us. Rav Chizdi says, this tells us from the fact that the Bryce says that if someone has consecutive mourning, he could do his laundry. The inference is, but that other aval, another regular mourner, is also is forbidden to go ahead and do laundry only with techbor available. You're allowed to do a quasi type of laundry. And if you're some of the people that Kalelu Sha'amru regarding Ve'ilam Megalchan of our Mishnah Cholamayim, then you're allowed to even do regular type of a haircut. So we're going to learn a Brisa, similar teaching, Keshem, the same that as just as Sha'amru that we said Asal Gelech B'Moed, not take a haircut on Cholamayim. So Kach Asal Little Tzepanai B'Moed. The Rabbi Yehuda says, just like you cannot cut your hair on Chol Moed, you don't cut your nails on Chol Moed. Rabbi Yossi Mater, Rabbi Yossi does permit, and that's the primary halacha, that to be able to cut the fingernails on Chol Moed. Now, now comparing to the other halacha we brought in before, and just like they said, a mourner cannot cut his hair during these days of mourning, Rabbi Yehuda says, and so too a mourner cannot cut his fingernails. Here also, Rabbi Yossi says, no, it's permitted. He permits both cases, that of a Chol Moed and of a mourner, to go ahead and cut his fingernails. Which Amar Uli says, okay, so Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda regarding a mourner that is not allowed to cut his fingernails. But Rabbi Yossi by Chol Moed that you're allowed to cut your fingernails. Shmuel, he disagrees. He says, as a continue of Testament Aleph, so Rabbi Yossi he agrees, like to what Ula said, that halacha like Rabbi Yossi on Chol Moed, but he says more than that. So halacha is like Rabbi Yossi even during the days of Avelis, that a mourner is allowed to cut his fingernails. Why? Because I'm a Shmuel, and Shmuel is l'shitase. Shmuel had said halacha gedivra mekal ba'avol. Halacha is always like the laws of the lenient interpretation for the laws of mourning, and therefore we're going to pass him in the rule like Rabbi Yossi, not Rabbi Yehuda, and that a mourner is allowed to go ahead and cut his fingernails, although he's not allowed to cut his hair. I think it's any time.